Shalom, Ka'ala Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Chokadash. Double honors my teachers, the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and mercy to the elect, may the house of David be born again in this generation. And Shalom to the 130 Yasharallah, who today are known as the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Indians, who before losing their true heritage were known as, and still are, the true Hebrew Israelites of the Holy Bible. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about Cleopatra and how she was an Edomite, or a so-called white person. But let's read this first. This is Isaiah 25:7. And he will destroy in this mountain the face of the covering cast over all people, and the veil that is spread over all nations. Okay? And that veil that is spread over all nations today is the false identity which all the nations hold. Right? Everybody in the world today believes that they go back to one of the 195 nations which the UN recognizes today, right? But the truth of the matter is that all the 195 nations today all go back to the 18 nations mentioned in Genesis, namely in Genesis 10. Okay. Person I want to focus on today is Cleopatra, right? Of Egypt. Okay. Now, this came to my mind because I read this article or this tweet, right, about the upcoming Cleopatra movie, and how right now they're wondering who is going to play her as far as movie actress, right? It's been, as you can see here in the Twitter, in the tweet, that Lady Gaga or Angelina Jolie have been hinted as playing it. But I hear that it's going to be that Israeli Edomite, Gal Gadot, the woman who played Wonder Woman. I think she's going to be the lead. But the thing that caught my attention here is what it appears to be a sister, right? A Judite, who says neither, because they says, it is being reported that Lady Gaga and Angelina Jolie is currently competing to play Cleopatra in the upcoming movie. Who would you like to see play the role? And this person replies and says, neither, because Cleopatra wasn't white. Do the right thing and give the role to Scarlett Johansson. Now, I'm not sure what she meant by that as far as giving it to Scarlett Johansson, because she too is, so-called white person, but a lot of people falsely believe that Cleopatra was a so-called Negro, right? But she was not, right? Because you see, by the time that Cleopatra came into power, the Edomites, who are spoken about in Daniel 2 and Daniel 7, namely in Daniel's vision, when he had the vision of the statue, the Grecians, right, which is simply the name of the Edomites at this time, they made up the stomach and thighs of brass, right? Well, let's go ahead and read this scripture that explains what happened during this time, that how these Edomites basically took over pretty much the majority of the world during this time, right? And this is 1 Maccabees 1:7. So Alexander, right? That's Alexander the Great, or Alexander the Macedonian. So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died. His servants bare rule, every one in his place. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. Okay. Now, when you go back to this image here, right, of the statue of Daniel's vision, right, or really the vision of the king Nebuchadnezzar, right? This is the Daniel's interpretations of it that was given to him by the Lord. Well, he had interpreted that the belly and thighs of brass, right? Let's go down to it, would be made up by the Edomites at the time, right? They also were this beast here, right, with that looked like a leopard with 4 wings, right? That was Alexander the Great and his 4 generals, right? 4 generals being Cassander, Lysimachus, Ptolemy, and Seleucus. Well, you see, eventually, like I just read in that scripture, after Alexander died, his 4 commanders basically took rulership of the kingdom that these Edomites had conquered. And Ptolemy, he eventually ended up getting Egypt. Well, Ptolemy, he reigned for a very long time, and not only him, but his family, right? There was the Ptolemaic dynasty, right? And that Ptolemy dynasty, right? Ptolemaic dynasty, right? It went on for a while, right? And it went all the way down, ultimately, to Cleopatra, right? Which ultimately, went down for a bit more, right? They constantly kept naming their descendants Ptolemy and Cleopatra and stuff. That was just what they did. Now, Cleopatra was famous because of who she had eventually ended up bedding, right? She ended up sleeping and fostering a child by Julius Caesar, right? The Edomite from Rome, right? And then eventually, after he died or was murdered, assassinated, I should say, she ended up taking a relationship with his under commander, Mark Antony, right? And there's a great show called Rome. Came out on HBO. It kind of shows this. Very well detailed. Really good show. You'll watch it if you have a chance, right? But it shows Cleopatra. And the thing is that, she's not they did not cast her as a so-called Negro, right? They casted her as a white person, right? Which is what she literally was. She was literally a Caucasian. More likely, she was a so-called Jew, right? Or Amalekite, right? Because these people were always, they're always in power, right? This is what her statue of her likeness looked like, which when you convert it to, which artists have converted it, right, to a lifelike drawing, and this is what you got, right? You got somebody who looks like a so-called Jewish princess, right? So these are the Edomites that for the most part are ruling the world now, who have since back then, since the time, like it tells you in Alexander in Maccabees, that they have that their sons put on the crown, and so did their sons after them, right? These are the people who eventually have been rulers of the world, and they've done this through different nations as they've taken control from nation to nation, all the way up until now, right? But what they've done is they've hidden themselves. They've hidden themselves under the veil or in cloaks of nationalistic names, right? Before they were the Greeks, they were the Macedonians, right? And before they were the Romans, they were the Greeks. And before, and so on and so on. And they spread out, they became the Egyptians. This is why when you get into the royal family of today, which they're not the original royal family, right? But when you get into it, they say that their history goes back to the Egypt, right? That they were the Egyptians. And that's pretty much true, because they did take over Egypt, right? And Cleopatra is a clear sign of those Edomites that had taken over Egypt. Okay, so but again, this is ultimately prophecy, because like it tells you here in Job 9:24, it says, "The earth is given into the hand of the wicked; he covereth the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he?" Right? And ultimately what Job is trying to tell you here, man, is that the world has been handed over to these Edomites, man. Right? And when these Edomites had taken over, they performed what history refers to as iconoclasm, which is where they take the icons of a nation and they basically start to redo them, right? They start to remake them in their likeness, right? This happened in Europe for the most part after the so-called Dark Ages, right? When the Renaissance came in. This is why you always hear about all those artists, Leonardo da Vinci, Donatello, Michelangelo, right? And so on and so on, right? Why were these artists elevated to such superstar-like status, right? Well, because they were doing a massive job. They were repainting all the images of the world, right? And what was this for? It was to ultimately, it was basically your form of white supremacy, right? Or what is more accurately should be referred to as Edomite supremacy, right? This is that prophecy that tells you that they would live off the dew or the fatness of the earth and the dew of heaven, and they would be the rulers of the world, right? And in doing so, they wanted to make this world in their own image. This is why they did all that iconoclasm in Europe. This is why they painted themselves as the Egyptians. When they took it over, they didn't come in and destroy or take down the customs and the doctrine of Egypt. No, they simply took it over, right? This is why, again, you constantly see that same adage from these Edomites, man, that they have no culture. So what do? They appropriate other cultures, right? Well, the reason is because they continually keep running from their culture, their heritage, which is the Edomites. Because what did the Bible say? That the descendants of Cain would ultimately be fugitives and vagabonds upon the earth, and that's ultimately what these Edomites, the so-called Caucasians of today, are. They are vagabonds. They are wandering all over the earth, and they're fugitives, man. They are running from their own judgment, and in doing so, what do fugitives do? They change their identity. They take on a new life, right? That's ultimately what these Edomites have done, right? And Cleopatra is a clear example of this. So I just wanted to bring that out, Aki. I thought I'd make a nice simple lesson today regarding a historic figure. So again, Cleopatra was an Edomite, right? A so-called white person. So with all that, I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'Shem, Yahushai, Ba'Shem, Dash. Double honors my teachers, the apostles, and elders, the great millstone. Peace and mercy to the elect. Shalom.